What did he get over?
When he got dumped by Linda Ronstadt.
Lucas was dating Linda Ronstadt?
Yes,
Yes,
he was head over heels with. Well, this is right after American Graffiti, and he sort of had that 70s yacht rock look on.
What do you think? Well, what do you know?
You must unlearn what you have learned.
Oh, what the Phantom Menace is that guy's problem?
I got a bad feeling about this.
But some people without brains do an awful lot of talking, don't they?
Oh, you should put that speech on tape.
He pulls a knife, you pull a gun. He sends one of yours to the hospital, you send one of his to the morgue. That's the Chicago way.
Hello, Chicago, hello.
Hello.
Hello. Gotta drink to that.
Welcome to Alternate Reality.
His hair was growing gray back then. Look at those first Star Wars pictures. His hair was growing gray then.
You know what isn't getting older, though?
What?
Us. We're still just
We're
as
getting
young
old
as
as
ever.
hell. What are you talking about?
We're just as young as we were way back in 1977.
We broke a hip sitting down.
when Star Wars first came out.
Hey,
May 25th, 1977.
Yeah, I saw Star Wars in August.
I did, too.
I beat both of you. We'll talk about that in a second. Hey, folks, it's Comic Book Man here. Welcome to The Alternate Reality, which is the podcast for Alternate Reality, the comic book shop located at the intersection of 111th and Kedzie in beautiful downtown Mount Greenwood. Alternate Reality, where all new comics are always 15% off every day for everyone for over a quarter of a century now. 15% off all new comics every day for everyone. I'm Comic Book Man, and I'm being joined today by the two pros from Dover, the one, the only man of musical notes, Rod Flash.
I'm part of the Sith.
And joining him with me is
Emperor
the one...
Palpatine.
Emperor Palpatine, the one, the only, the Black Emperor Palpatine, Bocepheus. Say hi, Bo.
How you doing, boys and girls?
How you doing, boys and girls? And like I said, this Comic Man, we're going to talk today about George Lucas, Star Wars, and what the hell is going on with Star Wars.
Star Wars is just fine. Lucas isn't very happy about it.
Well, apparently George Lucas isn't happy about what they've been doing with Star Wars, which most of fandom, from what, if you pay any attention to all the internet, is on fire about Star Wars on a daily basis.
Yeah. Even though they keep going to the movies.
It's the fire that never goes out and always constantly
We really
burns.
hate what they're doing. When's the movie coming out?
Yeah.
It's coming out. Yeah, it's coming out before
I can't wait to go see it so I can tell everybody how
I don't
lousy
like
it is.
Why'd you go? Because?
So today we're going to be talking about Star Wars, George Lucas, Walt Disney Corporation. But before we get to that, my Star Wars story. Yeah. Star Wars came out on May 25th, 1977, which I believe was a Friday.
Yes.
Yeah,
I saw it the previous Tuesday. I was part of a sneak peek audience. Once upon a time,
Yeah.
Super CFL, which is a radio station, we used to give away tickets to movies for preview showings, among many other things they gave away tickets for. And they gave away tickets to a little-known film called Star Wars, which nobody knew a damn thing about.
What the hell is this thing?
And if you were plugged in at all to Starlog, which was the internet back then.
Yeah.
Yes.
Magazine called Starlog, believe it or not, that was the internet and nothing else.
And Cinefantastic.
And Cinefantastic, and to a much lesser extent, Comic Reader.
Yeah, Comic Reader. Yeah.
That was the internet, and
That
it
was
was a
it.
very slow internet.
Slow.
You knew that this thing was coming out there, but you didn't really know it. And if you were a Marvel fan, you knew Star Wars was coming only because the first issue of the Star Wars comic came out in January of that year, and you were buying this comic, and you didn't know what the hell it was.
I bought it because Howard Chaykin drew it.
Howard Chaykin drew it. I think Roy Thomas wrote it.
Yeah.
But you didn't know what the hell it was. It was a movie that was coming, but hadn't come out yet. And to be honest with you, I don't think it made much of an impact on sales at Marvel until the movie came out.
Yeah.
When the movie came out, everything changed. But in January of that year, 77, no, I don't think it was on anybody's radar.
No.
Neither was the second issue or the third issue or the fourth issue. But as we got closer to it, there started to be rumblings in the force.
The infamous story about that first issue, which I talked to Chaykin about on Facebook. When that first issue came out, and Chaykin, being a young Howard Chaykin getting into the business, he came to the Comic-Con. And some young industrious fan walked up to him and said, "Your artwork on that first issue really sucked." And Chaykin responded with the usual Chaykin as, "F you," and walked away. And he went, "Yeah, I did it."
Okay, have you said that? Yes, Chaykin's art sucked.
Yeah, it was unable.
Well, here's the problem with Chaykin's art and other thing. He was not suited for Star Wars. Yeah. Chaykin is suited for many other things. American flag, and any character that can remotely spin into that orbit. Yeah. Black Hawk, Dominic Fortune, pulpy women in high heels and fishnets. with little beauty spots on their lips and big buff guys, square jaws who are idiots. Okay, that's Chaykin's universe. Science fiction,
is not his
for the most part,
was not his universe.
Was not his universe. Although he would try it. He also did a story in remember the indie comic Starreach.
Starreach.
He did one or two things in Starreach too, which was science fiction-y. But anyway, I digress. The comic came out, and I don't think anybody paid much attention to it.
People bought it.
And nobody knew what Star Wars was. I saw Star Wars, though, because I got tickets to see it via that radio promotion. And I was standing in line. This was at the Oak Street Theater on the Tuesday before it came out. And we were in line with a couple of hundred people, enough to fill a theater. They filled the theater up because they gave away free tickets.
Oh, yeah, free tickets.
So we're sitting there, we're watching this thing, Star Wars, it comes up. You've got the never-ending shot of the Star Destroyer flying over your head. You got the two robots out in the desert. You got the floating car. You got Obi-Wan. You don't need to see these droids. You got Darth Vader, evil incarnate. Han Solo, the cool pirate.
Cocky.
The Millennium Falcon, which I always thought was a great piece of machinery. I just love ships. That was the thing I clued in on, was the Millennium Falcon. Force and the big fight at the end and all that crap. The end of that movie, they're all standing there smiling. They got their little medals on, and they're all lined up, and the music swells. Dun, 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 cut to the credits. And I swear to God, I've told this story many times before. I'm going to say it again. The most memorable thing about all of that, to me, what seared it in my head was, I'm sitting on an aisle seat.
Yes.
I'm looking down the center aisle.
Yes.
I'm way back, though.
Yeah.
And down about 5 rows from the front, some fan gets out of his seat, throws himself on his knees in front of the theater screen like he's worshiping it, and he screams at the top of the lungs, "For the love of God, run it again!" And that was my first inkling that this might be something. For the love of God, run it again! And history was made after that.
It's off to the races.
So time goes by. George does Empire Strikes Back. Well, George doesn't really do it.
Yeah, Irvin Kershner does
Irvin
it.
Kershner does it.
Lawrence Kasdan writes it, and George to this day still hates Empire Strikes Back.
Then George does Return of the Jedi.
Right.
Then
Ewoks.
Then he decides. Yes. Then he decides to put it all away. Whatever folks might want to say about looking back on the original trilogy. Okay, Star Wars is Star Wars. Right. It's a thing unto itself.
Right.
Empire is the best of the bunch.
Yeah.
You don't get much better than Empire as far as this goes.
But it's dark.
Jedi was a huge disappointment for most fans.
Ewoks.
And it came down to Ewoks and Death Star again. Really?
Yeah, really? They couldn't come up with another weapon by now?
No, seriously.
The last one blew up. You couldn't come up with something, an improvement or something?
Okay, back then I remember this quite well. Death Star again and Ewoks.
Teddy bears.
Yes.
It pissed off so many fans.
I need to sell toys.
And that's exactly what George was doing. And that's a whole marketing thing, which we can get into later. Actually, it's a whole show around that. Then Star Wars got put on the shelf.
Yeah.
Marvel did the comic. The comic ran to like 104. Then Marvel said, well, we've gotten all the juice out of this horse we're ever going to get.
All 3 of the films are out. We got nothing left to do. Bye.
They killed it, and it lay fallow for like 5 years until
it became
Dark
a series
Horse
of books. Del Rey started doing books at that point, keeping the idea in the fans' mind,
keeping the idea alive. But Dark Horse picking the rights up and then seriously doing comics that go before the first movie, go way past the last movie, and then mine everything in between. That got fans going again with Star Wars, because Jedi had been 5-6 years down the road, but this Dark Horse thing, hey, it's good. You should be reading it. Hey, yeah, it is good. I'm going to start reading it.
Right. And then he did something that I sort of on the fence about, because even though he created it, they re-released the first 3, 4, 5, and 6. And
they released them. That was a 20th anniversary thing.
Right. And as they released it, George came up with the brilliant idea of adding characters and new storylines.
Well, ostensibly, he fixed the special effects.
He tweaked his own.
He says he fixed the special effects. The conceit behind the first film was, we made this thing on a shoestring budget. It was revolutionary at the time, and everybody loved it. But there was stuff like Jabba the Hutt that I never got right, and that I was never able to use.
The effects weren't up to the level that they were now, so I can go back and redo that and tweak it, and I can keep tweaking it.
Bad mistake.
And he did the same thing with the home video releases. You bought the first.
Yeah, I know.
And you said, well, okay, here's the new versions of it. You bought that one.
But the problem with that was he kept dinking with it.
Yeah.
He wouldn't leave it the hell alone.
He kept tweaking it.
It wasn't a matter of like with Star Trek. When they re-released Star Trek about 10, 15 years ago, they redid all the special effects in the original series. Yeah. Because those shows were done on a shoestring budget back in 1965. And you know what? We can do the effects much better today.
It'll look
and
better.
syndication will be more
cleaner.
saleable.
Yeah,
it'll look cleaner.
Just don't touch the story.
And we don't touch the story. And all they did was the special effects. There's tons of videos out there on YouTube showing you every single scene that was redone. Yeah. But once they did it, they were done with it.
Yeah.
Said, okay, it's out there. It looks much better than it did. It looks much cleaner, and whether you like the old one or not, here you go.
Right.
George kept going back to the well, and back to the well, and back to the well. I want to put this little guy in over here in this corner, and this little guy over in this corner. And he just didn't stop, and fans got pissed off about it.
And they were making...
We're like, leave it alone!
You remember the scene from Big Bang Theory where they were making a joke about going to see Star Wars picture. They said, let's hurry up and go see it before George Lucas has changed the storyline in it. Yeah. It got a big laugh out of the crowd, and he got real pissed off from that.
Well, that was the thing with the first Star Wars film, A New Hope. Yeah. He dinked around with the scene between Greedo and...
Because Han can't shoot
Solo.
first. But he did shoot first.
Yeah.
In the original movie, it looks like he shoots first.
Yeah.
And Lucas always said, no, Han doesn't shoot first.
He's a
hero.
he
dinked around with it enough, Greedo shoots first,
hero.
but that changed the
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Han's the lovable rogue.
Before we get too much deeper, one thing I do want to mention is between the first and the second trilogy, he did try to make other movies.
Right.
All of which went down in flames.
Yeah.
He made Willow. He made Howard the Duck.
Radio Land Murders.
He produced these. He didn't direct them. Although you keep talking about bringing Willow back for some reason.
Willow has become a cult film, and actually, when it comes down to it, Willow actually made a lot of money. People complained about it. It was panned, but it also was a box office hit.
Well, one of the reasons it was a box office is he had Tom Cruise in it. As Tom Cruise was starting to rise in ascendancy.
Ron Howard directed it.
Yeah. There's enough stuff in there to make you think, well, maybe there is something to this movie. I should watch it. And then after you watch it, you realize, well, there really is nothing.
There's really nothing.
And, of course, Howard the Duck is a Marvel character, so, I mean, Howard's always going to be around in some form or another. But he wound up making one of the worst Marvel movies, or a movie based on a Marvel character of all time. And the next thing you know, George Lucas goes, hey, people are interested in Star Wars again. I think I'll go back and do the first trilogy.
I started in the middle. I'll go back to the original.
But everyone knows he started in the middle. Yeah. The first re-release of Star Wars was not Star Wars. It was A New Hope Star Wars. That goes all the way back to 1978, 79, though, when they re-released it. That was the first thing he did. And, of course, everyone then said, well, where were the first four? Well, you don't understand. This is the middle trilogy.
The middle trilogy because this would be the...
So Lucas decides to do his first trilogy, and he does Phantom Menace. Everybody's full of expectations for it, and it comes out, and they weren't nearly as excited about it after it came out as
they weren't as impressed
before it came out.
Anticipation was good, but then when it came out, it went...
Then it became the law of diminishing returns after that. The second movie came out, which was...
Attack of the Clones,
Attack
2002.
The main topic of conversation on Attack of the Clones was, that guy playing Anakin really sucks.
Yeah, Hayden Christensen.
Yeah, this guy playing Anakin Skywalker.
I heard the word wooden several times when his name was brought up.
And by the time we got to the third one,
Revenge of the Sith, 2005.
People's attitude was, we're going to wrap this up or what?
Are we still working on this?
And the writer of those three was George Lucas.
Yeah, George Lucas.
That's the thing. The first trilogy was Anakin's story, which gets us into Luke. How did Darth Vader turn bad?
Right.
Once upon a time...
He was a good little boy.
Well, he was a good little boy, but he was the apprentice to Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
Okay, well, what happened with Obi-Wan? Answers all those questions.
Right.
And how did Luke wind up on Tatooine?
Yeah.
And how did Leia wind up on Alderaan? Yeah. And if they were babies, well, what the hell happened? Where's Mom at?
Where's Mom and Dad?
Yeah, we know what happened to Darth Vader, but where's Mom?
Yeah.
What happened to her? So the second trilogy comes out, and fans are less than thrilled with it. At some point down the road, he decides, well, I'm not going to make any more movies because you don't like what I'm doing,
so I'm just going to put this thing on the shelf.
And eventually Disney comes up to him and he sells Star Wars to Disney.
Disney was not the first suitor for the Star Wars film. Remember when Sony passed on Spider-Man?
Yeah.
Did the same thing with Star Wars.
With Star Wars, yeah.
They would have been the first ones to buy it, and they took too long. And while they were dithering around, Disney jumped in and got it.
Said, you know what?
And George made
$4.4 billion, plus you get $40 billion in shares of Disney.
Yeah.
Okay, he released a statement after that saying the reason why he was selling is because that he was getting older, moving away from this business, from this company, from all of this stuff. I have a terrific director in J.J. Abrams, and my assistant that's running Lucasfilm and Skywalker Studios, she's going to take over for me. I'm going off somewhere. I'm going to enjoy life while I still can. You guys have a nice life. Thank you.
When he made the deal was fine. he goes and he talks to Bob Iger, the head of Disney. You guys have bought the property. I've got an idea for a new trilogy.
Exactly.
Storyline was Luke trains a new Jedi. We introduced some kind of microbiotic thing. Yes, his midichlorians revisited.
That was the other thing that pissed off a lot of fans about
this is why the Force works with you, because you've got midichlorians.
Midichlorians don't show up until the first of the second trilogy, Phantom Menace, where they throw midichlorians out there, and that's the explanation for everything. Yeah. Which,
if you want,
if you want a comic book explanation for it, once upon a time, Marty Pasco did a story about Superman that says, the reason why people believe that Clark Kent and Superman are two different people because of the glasses? Because he's always super hypnotizing people to think that he looks different. And they went so far as to on the last page of the story, they did a drawing of what Clark Kent looks like to most people, who is frailer, who's more gaunt, who's thinner,
he looks different,
as opposed to what Superman looks like, or what Clark Kent looks like to us reading the comic. And it's because his super hypnotism is always working. And everybody hated that damn story as soon as it came out. This is the stupidest damn thing we've ever heard. And midichlorians is almost on that same level.
Yeah, and he also wanted to introduce a new race. Now, Bob Iger, he's got a book coming out talking about Life is Disney. Iger says, okay, George had all these ideas, but when he owned the characters, he didn't do anything with them.
Not only that, but remember, he signed with the agreement that they would consult him, that they would not take everything that he writes down as the gospel for the next three.
They did consult him. They heard what he had to say. Iger and them wrote it all down. It was there. Then they had their first meeting at Skywalker Ranch, which had Kathleen Kennedy, J.J. Abrams, and screenwriter Michael Arndt, who just won an Academy Award. And Abrams and Arndt explained what the trilogy was going to be. And George sat there and he realized, they're not using any of the stuff that I came up with, are they?
They don't have to.
They didn't have to.
That's what happens when you sell your character.
And Iger says he didn't say anything, but I could tell from looking at his face, he was not happy with the fact that we were ignoring everything he came up with. Now, when Force Awakens came out, there was a cover article in Vanity Fair, and Lucas said, yes, I understand that this is a new people, and they're going to do what they want to do, and I don't have a problem with that. That was then. About a week or so ago, that's when he goes, well, I'm kind of disappointed with what they did, because they didn't really follow what I wanted to do. And there was stuff that I would have done that they're not doing. And
don't forget he made that crack that he felt more like it was white slavery.
Well, but that was George being silly. Then the original idea when Disney bought it was, okay, we're going to do a trilogy, and we're going to split those trilogies in with films.
Disney's original plan of doing the trilogy, and in between
every
each
2 years.
installment of this, we're going to drop a Star Wars film in between each episode of the trilogy. Right. So you're going to have something trilogy related, trilogy related, trilogy related. Till we get out of the trilogy.
Right. When Solo came out, when you had problems with the directors, you had to fire him, bring in Ron Howard. He came out. Reviews were mixed. It actually was not a really bad film. There was no third middle film. It was supposed to be either a Boba Fett movie, which turned into The Mandalorian. It was supposed to be a Ben Kenobi film, which is also going to be a TV show on Disney+. And so you had no middle film there. And Solo came out and didn't do too well. Iger went, we probably oversold our hand with releasing these things, so we're going to change the release dates. We may have oversaturated and pushed it too hard. And so stuff slowed down. And so now you've got The Rise of Skywalker coming at the end of the year. That's the last of this trilogy. These people go away.
Well, part of the problem Disney had, I think, with Star Wars was they looked at Star Wars as another Marvel.
Yeah.
We can do a shitload of Star Wars films, and the fans will suck them all up, just like we're doing a shitload of Marvel films, and fans are sucking those up. Now, whether or not films are good or bad or indifferent, they're looking at the property and going, we can crank as many films out of Star Wars
this an annual event.
that we can with Marvel movies. And the problem with that line of thought is Marvel is a universe that has been around for 80 years, if you go back to Marvel Comics #1, which has had hundreds and hundreds of people working in it. And it's a huge, expansive canvas to draw from. And Star Wars is Star Wars. It's just
George Lucas.
Star Wars.
It's Star Wars.
It's George Lucas.
And within the Star Wars universe, there's not a lot of room to play with. You either got the rebels who are fighting against the Empire, or you have the Empire fighting against the rebels to try to get back on top. There aren't any like time travel stories in there. There aren't any stories about this planet over here is struggling against this problem over there, and how does this race of people overcome this problem? It's a closed universe. The title of the thing is Star Wars. You've always got a war going on. Without a war, you got no story. So at what point do you have peace? You never have peace, because without peace, you can't have a war. So there's always war going on. And with Star Trek, you get in a ship, you go out and find stuff.
You look for stuff.
Well, but you're always going out and finding new stuff. With Star Wars, either one side's on top or the other side's on top, which means one side's on the bottom or the other side's on the bottom. And that's your universe. And it doesn't get any deeper than that.
Right. And so now what you've got is The Rise of Skywalker, which ends that storyline. You've got Rian Johnson, who's doing his trilogy. No one knows what it's about. He's not telling us. You got the Game of Thrones guys, Benioff and Weiss, doing their trilogy. No one knows what about. They're not telling us. Oh, Kevin Feige from Marvel, he's going to be producing a Star Wars film. What?
That's probably a huge mistake on Feige's part.
No. Feige is a huge Star Wars fan. And he's not writing and directing, he's producing it. And we don't know what it's about yet, but the fact that you got Feige to wander over from Marvel Studios to produce this film, he's going to have his pick of directors and writers.
Earlier in this podcast, the theme that is carried on throughout every one of these films is once you get past Empire, fans are always disappointed in the product. It's never as good. It's never as good as it should have been. It's never as good as it could have been. We are disappointed. This is terrible. We aren't happy.
But we're spending our money.
From Jedi to the second trilogy, the second trilogy, to what they're doing right now, fans have never been happy with anything that's been done with Star Wars. They've always had a nit to pick on some level. And George Lucas, the biggest fan of all, had no use for Empire.
No. He still hates Empire.
Which is the best thing that they've ever done with that concept.
He hates Empire. Always will.
Why would he, to this day, still hates the thing that his name is staple?
Well, he doesn't like what they're doing with it.
He doesn't like what they're doing with it, but he doesn't. Basically, what his complaint is, you're not doing what I wanted you to do.
Okay, but here's the thing about that. I'm not trying to sound like a Disney guy, but you sold your rights.
That's what we're saying.
You got a $4 billion check, and so you got $40 million in stock from Disney, which is probably triple.
George Lucas is great.
And you going around and putting this stuff on social media, the thing that you hated for the long time, because you kept saying over and over, nothing has destroyed the movie industry but social media. And you go straight to social media and start talking about the fact how much I distaste this.
Rod, George Lucas is the guy who sold his kid for a buttload of money, and it's 10 years later, and he's checked back in with his kid, and he doesn't like the fact that the guys that he sold it to, in his eyes, maybe not in anyone else's eyes, although most fans would probably tell you this is true, but as far as he's concerned, you have terribly abused my child, but you sold your child.
That's not.
But you have terribly abused my child.
You have no right to it no more.
Even though I'm crapping into high clover as far as money goes,
this is him
you are treating my child well, at which point the guy that owns the child says, get the hell out of here. You sold him to us. We gave you a bunch of money.
Is almost
go
like
the hell away.
Right. It's like, George, did the check clear? Okay.
Yeah, the check clear. Shut up. I mean, I love George Lucas to death, but you don't own Star Wars. You have nothing to do with Star Wars no more. Quit living in the past. Everybody looks at
I'll be willing to bet George is still getting residual checks from every movie that comes out. George
he does. Yeah,
I'm sure that was part of the deal. Whatever they come out with Star Wars,
he's getting checks.
He's getting
he's probably doing that.
What he's saying is, well, you're doing stuff that I wouldn't have done. Yeah, we are doing stuff that you wouldn't have done. Because guess what? You're not doing them. We are.
Well, that's like a creator at Marvel who creates a character like, I don't know, say Thanos.
Thanos.
Say Thanos.
Yeah.
Jim Starlin. Not that Jim Starlin has done this, but I'm just using it as an example. Jim Starlin creates Thanos, and Jim Starlin goes away, and Marvel takes Thanos and does a bunch of crap with Thanos that has absolutely nothing to do with what his original vision was. Well, it's too bad you don't own the character. Right. You created the character for Marvel, but you don't own the character. They can do whatever the hell they want with the character. You know, the same thing holds for any intellectual property. How will Star Wars best fit in the Magic Kingdom?
Bob Iger, he took the higher road on this. There's something else interesting in this book, which is not Star Wars related, which is pretty freaky, which I found, I'm like, really?
What's the Iger book again?
50 years as being CEO of Disney. Because he's going into his retirement year and they're wanting to replace him. Iger also talks about buying Marvel. And Iger says, Ike Perlmutter, the chairman of Marvel, did not want a Captain Marvel or a Black Panther movie because he said, I don't think women movies and black movies sell.
Hey, so that's a common frame of thought from older Hollywood.
And you think about Iger. Iger's been around for a long time. Iger was brought in to run Disney by Michael Eisner, and he started running ABC when Fred Silverman was doing programming at ABC. The man with a golden gut.
Right.
Iger's been around for a long time. Iger is a guy who's never had any controversies, never gotten any problems, and has always been well respected. This book, and maybe I wouldn't have bought this book, but reading these excerpts, I need to pick this book up.
Right.
He sounds like a pretty smart guy who knows how things are going, how things work.
He was telling Lucas this point blank. He said, you know what's wrong with the Star Wars universe? We need to move it forward. Lucas' thing about that was after he saw Force Awakens,
he wanted to redo the same story over and over.
Yeah, he said, you're doing the same thing over and over again. I said, no, we're introducing these characters because we're saying goodbye to them. Yeah. We're moving the storyline over. After these next 3 movies come out and we take maybe a year or 2 off for the next 10 Star Wars movie, you won't hear any mention of Han Solo.
What do we do in the first film? We kill Han.
Yeah.
What do we do in the second film? We kill Luke. What do we do in the third film? Carrie Fisher's dead. I guess she's not going to make it.
I guess she's not going to make the end of this.
Welcome to the new world, George. Well, Mark Hamill's going to be Obi-Wan, so yeah, he'll never be gone.
Harrison Ford, he came back for one movie, and basically it was, kill me.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
Are you going to kill me?
He had no problem with it. He had no problem with it. He said,
and you know what that is? It's Charlton Heston on Beneath the Planet of the Apes. Yeah. I'll come back if you kill me.
Yeah.
If you kill me, I'm in. If you kill me, I'm in. And
I'll come back. I'll do the noble sacrifice. I'll be killed by my own kid.
And there you go.
That's a hell of a way to go out.
Okay. Before we kill this off, any final thoughts?
I don't have a problem with Disney Star Wars films. I look at fans who complain about this stupidest crap. And I go,
Ray.
Grow up.
They didn't like the black character.
Yeah, why is there black? We don't like the fact there's an Asian girl in it. Really? What world do you live in? Do you ever go outside your house? Quit whining about stupid crap.
Rod?
I love both Star Wars and Star Trek. I can see why the Star Trek fans laugh at the Star Wars guys now. I finally see why. We can't let stuff go.
I've said for years with Star Wars fans, you guys are the luckiest ones in the world because nothing's been done with your characters. The years where they weren't doing movies are basically flies in amber. Okay? But with Star Trek, they're constantly doing stories, and you know what? There's always something there to piss somebody off. But for the most part, most Star Trek fans, not all, but most Star Trek fans are more or less happy. Discovery, not so much. We'll see what happens with Picard. But you go back to the Berman years. Most Star Trek fans were very happy with the Berman years. They didn't have a problem with them. And they changed a lot of stuff as far as Star Trek lore goes, or at least tweaked it to the point where you could make some fans unhappy. Star Wars fans didn't have any of that. So Luke Skywalker was Luke Skywalker. Yeah. Because nobody's done anything with Luke Skywalker, so we love Luke Skywalker until, he's old now and he's pissed off and he's not happy and he wishes he was never a Jedi and he's cranky. And we don't like this. Well, you were happy before, just when nothing was being done.
Yeah, you were quite happy.
For myself, I really don't have a horse in that race. Star Wars is something that's fine. I like it to a certain extent. The same way I like the Aliens films. Yeah. And I don't think there's anything worth watching on the Aliens films after the second one. I don't live and die by it. It's like, well, gee, it'd be nice if they make a decent Alien film, but they haven't. Oh, well, who cares?
Hey, you like Prometheus.
Prometheus was interesting, but, I didn't think it was as great as everyone said it was. As it was cracked up to be. I'm more of a Star Trek fan, and I'm relatively happy with that universe right now. Still think Discovery's kind of stupid on some levels. The ship doesn't make any sense, but that's Star Trek problems. That's Star Wars problems. And, whatever problem Star Wars has, and I read all the stuff with the fans too, and all of them getting out the long knives for George and the longer knives for Disney, specifically people in charge at Disney. And, I just look at it and go, well, you guys are happier when there was nothing being made.
Yeah, you were at home complaining about, those last ones really sucked.
Well, no, you complain, when are they going to make new ones? When are they going to make new ones? And now that they've made new ones,
I
don't
like
this. And like I said a few minutes ago, the Star Wars universe is not that big. You could make it bigger if you would expand the concept, which is something I think they tried to do in the last film. What was the name of the last Star Wars movie? That's how big a fan I am.
The Last Jedi.
The Last Jedi. Here's what I know about The Last Jedi. I watched Last Jedi. Fans don't like the fact that you had this one ship light speed through the other ship and destroy it.
That was one of the best parts of the
movie. I'm like,
okay, but the fans don't like that, and fans didn't like the fact that you had the good side of the Force and the bad side of the Force maybe sort of kind of working together at the end of the film. All the other stuff that you mentioned before, about the black character and the Asian character, that's in the mix there too.
You're really going to hate the third film.
But not being a big Star Wars fan, I looked at that and I go, that's actually interesting. Yeah. Because everything has been black and white in Star Wars, and all of a sudden, shades of gray.
You get Luke telling Ray, most of the stuff you heard, okay, it's all a bunch of crap.
What? But no, the two of them, Ray and Kylo, when they're fighting together, back to back
That was
against
awesome. That was
the Empire.
awesome. Yeah.
And they say to each other, there is a third way.
Yeah.
There's not just the way of the Jedi and not just the way of the Sith. There is a third way that we can look at the world. Well, that's a gray. And as soon as you hit gray, everything opens up because you have a whole world of possibilities.
You said, where was the third one?
And
Ben Solo.
And the internet will probably be on fire. Yeah. But until that happy day happens, we will be here. As will the store, Alternate Reality, which is located at the intersection of 111th and Kedzie, beautiful downtown Mount Greenwood. Alternate Reality. Orlando Comic Store is 15% off every day for everyone, including all my Star Wars comics, all you Star Wars fans. And be sure to go to the store's website, myalternatereality.com, where you can find Bo's news, where he has scintillating news stories, and JR's reviews, Vito Carly's reviews, everything you want to know about shipping, links to this podcast, link to the store shipping videos, much, much more, myalternatereality.com. Thank you very much for listening. Take care of yourselves, and bye! Thanks a lot for listening. If you enjoyed this show, please like and share it with all your friends. We value your feedback, so drop us a question, comment, show idea, or complaint either at arcomics@msn.com or, if provided, in the comments section down below on this platform. The opinions expressed in this episode are solely those of the individuals and not necessarily those of Alternate Reality Incorporated. This show is, as always, coming to you from the Alternate Reality Comic Shop, located in the heart of beautiful downtown Mount Greenwood at the intersection of 111th and Kedzie, serving Chicago comics fandom since 1994.
Elvis has left the building.